on social media and share it. Do the same with any other Ancient Faith Radio podcasts that you find. Same with the blogs and their books and all the other wonderful things they do. And if you find it in your heart to do so, be a financial contributor to Ancient Faith. I am monthly, and it's really important we support this ministry and all other Orthodox Christian ministries so we can continue to spread the light and love of Christ through books, podcasts, and all kinds of other mediums. As I mentioned too, I also do a Monday reflection through the Orthodox Christian Network Facebook page. Every Monday at noon, 15-20 minute reflection through Facebook Live. You can find information about my books that I've written, to include Sacramental Living, Christianity as a Way of Life, and Echoes of Truth, Christianity and the Lord of the Rings. On my website, you can find them through Ancient Faith actually sells my Lord of the Rings book, but you can go out and just do a search and find it on any major booksellers. I also do a Quotes of the Day ministry. Every weekday, I send out 5 quotes under a common theme. Don't know what I'm going to do morning to morning, just comes out during my prayer and reading. But if you'd like to be on that distribution list, it's BCC'd, so your emails don't get exposed. You can just email me at sacramentalliving, one word, at verizon.net. God bless you. Look forward to being with you next time. And this has been Michael Haldis for Ancient Faith Radio.
Michael Haldis is the author of Sacramental Living, Understanding Christianity as a Way of Life, published by Eastern Christian Publications. Proclaiming Christ, victor over sin and death. You're listening to Ancient Faith Radio, your Orthodox Internet radio connection.
This is Everyday Orthodox with your host, Elisa Bielatich Davis. We get together on Sunday nights to meet everyday Orthodox Christians. We're hoping to get to know the members of the body of Christ across all of our various jurisdictions and regions. We may worship in various languages or even on different calendars, but we have so much in common. Come get to know someone new and see how they're living out this Orthodox faith in another corner of the world. After all, every person is an icon of Christ, and as we'll see, every person has a story to tell. If you have a question for tonight's guest, we invite you to call in and join the conversation at 1-855-237-2346. That's 1-855-AF-RADIO. Now, here's Elisa.
Welcome to Everyday Orthodox. It is November 21st, 2021, and we're live on Ancient Faith Radio. I'm Elisa Bielatich Davis, and we come here on Sunday nights to get together and get to know another Orthodox Christian. I love it. I think of this as building community through conversation. We Orthodox people, we are far flung. A lot of times there are just a few of us, a handful of us in any neighborhood, right? But, and also we split ourselves up a little bit, right? We worship in different jurisdictions. We're all over the place. And frankly, Orthodox people in Nashville don't necessarily know all the Orthodox people in Kansas, right? Like we're spread out a little bit. And since we're such a small group, I think it's so good to take some time and make the effort to get to know each other, because we really are a beautiful community of people. We've got all kinds of immigrants. We've got children of immigrants who grew up in interesting families. We've got all sorts of converts who come from different places. And honestly, it seems to me that everyone has a completely different story. We have so many interesting people. So I'm excited that Ancient Faith has given me the opportunity to just come here on Sunday nights and talk to people. Like, this is my favorite thing, you guys. It's so great. But, speaking of which, I was just listening to the program playing before us. Michael Haldis was talking about how we need to make sure that we're supporting Ancient Faith Radio. And it occurs to me we don't talk about that enough on our show. Giving Tuesday is coming up this week. And as the holidays approach, God willing, throughout this Nativity fast, we all are turning our minds to giving, right? Giving money to worthy causes here at the end of the year. And so I hope that you'll keep Ancient Faith Radio both in your prayers and also, if possible, on your list of places where you give, because Ancient Faith Radio does wonderful work. I came into the church listening to Ancient Faith myself, and now I get to sit here and talk to people on Sunday nights. So at any rate, I just want to echo what I just heard and say, let's all let's all be ancient faith donors. I know I'm on the list. I know all of the people who are contributing. We contribute all these podcasts and write all these books and do all these things. And frankly, it's not for the money. You don't get much money back. And in addition, a lot of us are actually giving on top of it because we just love this ministry. So at any rate, I will climb down off of that soapbox now, and I'll let you know that Matushka Trudy is right here tonight, as she always is, engineering the program and taking your calls. So you're welcome to call in and join us tonight at 1-855-AF-RADIO. That's 1-855-237-2346. And tonight we have a wonderful guest. I think you'll really enjoy her. Her name is Presvytera Kathryn Tussing. And so she's an artist. She's fun. Like if you go to her website, KathrynTussing.com, there's a wonderful about me. And as I'm reading it, I just love it. She's talking about being a little kid who loved art, and she's drawing and she's so proud of it. And she's going door to door to sell her drawings to her neighbors. And she's very joyful. And she's lovely. And so I think you're going to enjoy her very much. And so I don't want to give away the rest of her story, though. So that's the only part I'm going to give away, is there was some door-to-door salesmanship happening early on. But at any rate, Presvytera, welcome to the program.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me. It's a huge honor and a huge pleasure to be here. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for coming on. I'm just absolutely delighted to have you, and I'm excited to get an opportunity to get to know you. So tell me, let's start from the beginning of the story. You weren't always a presbytera. At some point, you were just a little kid. Where were you born and raised? What's your childhood like?
Yeah. So I was born actually in Atlanta, Georgia, and I lived there until I was, almost 9 years old. But my parents, they were not native Southerners, so they were actually West Coasters. They were from Salinas, California, but they migrated to Portland, Oregon, and then in the 80s, 1980, they moved to the South. 2 years later, I was born, and so for me, it's kind of funny. I just grew up like, oh, this is where we're from, and they're like, no, we're not. But we're not really Southerners. But I'm like, why don't you have a Southern accent like our neighbors, and why don't so it's kind of funny. We were, I thought we were from the South, but we weren't.
Well, really, you were from the South, though, right? Like, that's where you grew up.
Right.
Yeah, I'm a transplant, and my kids are all like native Texans, and it's weird because it's like, well, I'm not from here, but apparently everyone I'm related to is from here now. So you are. Yes. You're from Georgia. You're just, your folks aren't.
Georgia peach. Exactly. Right.
That's right. I love that.
And
there's so much of that nowadays, though. We all move around. And actually, I was raised by Georgians living in California, while you were being raised by Californians living in Georgia. But I think of myself as being from California, even though all my people are from Georgia. See, there you go. We've traded heritage, and it works out just fine. It's totally fine. It's just fine.
Works out. Yes. For sure. And I have wonderful, vivid memories of, the South, and I really treasure them. So it's a part of me. So yeah.
It really is. And it's interesting as a parent, probably for your parents too, right? Like they don't think of themselves as Georgians, but they've like accidentally raised a Georgian. but that's how it is.
It's just kind of a blip. Yeah. I was like, oh, it was a fun adventure. And for me, it's like, no, that was, so.
Those are my formative years, guys. I'm from Georgia.
Exactly,
there you go.
Right. Yes.
Did you stay in Georgia for most of your youth, or did you guys move again?
So we were there until I was very early third grade, and then my parents decided that their time in Georgia was over, and it was time to return to the West Coast, and so they moved to a small little town on the southern Oregon coast called North Bend, and it's right by Coos Bay. Sometimes I know there's a North Bend, Washington, and there's a North Bend. There's a city called Bend, which is known for its last blockbuster ever, and it's known for its skiing. I'm like, so we weren't in north of Bend. This is a completely other small town called North
Which
Bend.
is 100% of what I thought you were saying. Like, I was in North Bend. I'm like, yeah, I know exactly where that. Oh, no, I don't.
Not the blockbuster North Bend. Yeah, not the blockbuster Bend. We're a town called North Bend, right by Coos Bay, which is a small little town on the southern Oregon coast. And
that's
so we were
beautiful.
there. Yeah, I was there from third grade on through high school, and then that was a wonderful place to grow up. Very, very different from the South, but I quickly.
Well, out of curiosity, like what was that like? So I grew up in California, And we would go up the Northern California coast, not as high as Oregon, right? But up pretty high up there. And the higher you got, the crazier the people were. I say that with all due respect and love. But and it wasn't everyone, but it was sort of, and I lived way out in the wilderness myself. And so, and I find in my own family, this was true. People who don't want to be in community in the big cities kind of go out and they find these really, really distant places. Is North Bend like that? Or is it still more kind of, I don't know, accessible and less interesting for people who are trying to get off the grid?
Yeah, it's interesting. It was a logging town like a long time ago. And so it was this funny little industry town that was isolated. It was, a good 2 hours south of like the larger city of Eugene. And it was, so it felt isolated. We weren't super close to large cities, but it was its own little developed town with a really cool history. And it was a small town, and there was definitely some, for sure, interesting folk. I think anytime you live near the ocean, it just attracts some interesting people. but and that's totally fine. But
no, it does. And actually, I mean, it's nice, right? Because it makes for a colorful crowd. It gives, if you love good stories, right? Like you're just in heaven because you get a million good stories in a place like that. I love that.
Yes, yeah. So it was a great place to grow up. It's really beautiful to live there. So yeah.
So I'm under the impression that you were very artistic as a little kid, but I don't know because I'm thinking about that and I was reading your bio for your art page, right? So of course that's what you're talking about. Were you really just primarily focused on art, or were there a lot of other things that were also getting you excited when you were a kid?
Yeah. So I've been drawing since I was really small. And thankfully my parents nurtured that in me and encouraged that. But my dad was also hugely into sports. And so we were probably as soon as we could, we were playing t-ball, and he was always the coach. And then, later softball, and then basketball was really the big sport though. And then, so we played basketball as soon as we were old enough, and then on through like elementary school and junior high. And then we also did tennis and volleyball. So even though I wasn't like naturally an athlete, it was like something to do, especially, and it's easy to do when your dad's the coach. And I had two older sisters, and they were really athletically focused, probably a little more than I was. But for me, it was kind of like, oh yeah, sure, I'll tag along. It's just something fun to do. My friends are doing it, and so there was some sports as well, and then and just sort of being a normal kid, being kind of a goofball. I like to play with my friends. We like to. We were pretty imaginative, we'd when we were old enough to kind of manage a camcorder, we would make movies and stuff. And so we just had fun. It was, like my family wasn't super wealthy or anything like that. So we just sort of we just got really creative. We really were imaginative and stuff like that. And so it was, we found fun where we could, just was like, oh, let's do sports. And then later on, in high school, I got into drama and stuff like that. So, just sort of looking at opportunities around us and sort of just finding ways to get involved. And again, as a third born, it's easier when you have two older siblings to kind of pave the way for you and stuff like that. So I was, I felt like it sort of helped me be a pretty happy-go-lucky kid who was, willing to try like lots of different things and stuff like that. So even though art was always like my first love and everything, I felt like I was able to try different things and be exposed to different things, which,
That is great. So you were the third child, is that right?
Yes, I was the third child. My brother came when I was the baby girl until I was 7, and then my brother came along, and so he was the man.
So that can go two ways, right? Like either that is like a living baby doll for you to play with, so it's very delightful, or it is someone who has come in and stolen the spotlight. Maybe both.
Yeah, I was eager to not be the baby. I remember asking my mom, like, can you have more? Please, please, please. And she's like, no, I'm done. And then I remember praying for a sibling. And then one day she's like, you guys, I have some fun news. And so I remember that being like my first answered prayer. Like, oh, yay. I don't know, for some reason, I was like, I am not the baby. I do not want to be the. Yeah. So I sort of was for 7 years, but we were so happy to have a little brother. So Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
lovely. That is really
Yeah.
lovely. I like that idea of just, sort of letting organically fun things happen, right? Like it's not so much, okay, I'm going to try to think of something out of nowhere or that I got out of a book to try to do. I'm just going to look around and see what the opportunities are and I'm going to leap on
Yeah.
those. I like that. I
Yeah.
like that you pointed that out because I think sometimes we don't always consider that that's actually a really good skill that a lot of us have developed. It's very
Yeah. I
good.
think I know it's maybe easier back in, like the late 80s and 90s because, I mean, you sort of were forced to, like, hey, there's nothing fun to do. There's nothing on TV right now. Like, there's golf right now. It's Saturday and there's nothing streaming. You don't have
Right.
anything on. So you had to go out and, kind of, I don't know, make your own opportunities and stuff and just connect and find ways to have fun. And so, yeah.
That's so funny. It's
I
golf
liked it.
today. Like I completely forgot
Yeah.
about that. That's right. They were during the PGA Tour. It would just be golf all day on the
Yeah, it's like,
weekend.
the Saturday morning
Oh, how
cartoons, and then
terrible.
it's done. And then the rest of there's nothing on TV. It's boring. And, we didn't have cable. We didn't have, so it's like, that's it. Go,
Yeah,
go figure
that's
out
it.
something to do. So, yep. Yeah.
Yeah, I try to tell my kids, that you don't understand. The show is on at 7. If you don't see it at 7, you just
Oh,
don't ever
yeah.
see it. It's
And that's
gone
if your family
forever.
agrees to watch it with you. Yeah, it's like,
Right?
you have to agree. The whole family, you're going to watch Home Improvement right now. And it's like, so.
Right. And you better not get a phone call in the middle because then you're out of luck. So.
Oh, right. Yes.
But, well, that sounds like a very good upbringing. Were you guys religious? Were you like going to church all the time, or was that not a big
Yeah.
question in your house? I know you had some answered prayers there with the baby. So
Yes. So yeah, faith. I grew up, in a Protestant household, and faith was strongly instilled into us. And our parents really, they never, kind of like with our activities and extracurriculars, they never really forced anything on us, but like they set an example, and it made it pretty simple to follow. They never really gave us like, I don't know. I guess I'm just really thankful for that. But yeah, we grew up. My dad grew up. Well, so I guess to back up a little bit, my dad grew up Catholic, and then my mom grew up American Baptist. And when they got married, my dad just kind of became Protestant as well. And so we were raised Protestant, but like we didn't, because they both came from such different backgrounds, we were never really like solidified totally on one denomination, so to speak. So I guess for lack of a better word, I could say we were non-denominational, but we were always going to like mainline Protestant churches. We kind of were church gypsies for a while. It's kind of a weird phrase, but like we would visit my uncle. My uncle was a pastor. I have quite a few pastors in my family, but my uncle was a pastor in Georgia, actually. And so we would go to his church, and then sometimes we would also just kind of hop around to different churches. And I don't know, I think my dad was kind of seeking the right church or seeking the truth. And so I just remember being in Georgia, and if we weren't going to my uncle's church, which was quite a drive away, then we were going to some other church that was kind of in the Atlanta area and stuff. So that was kind of, Sunday church was non-negotiable. It was something we always did, but where we went wasn't always. I didn't always know where we were going and stuff. So, but faith was definitely an important part of our life for sure.
well, that's a hard thing too. I know, my family was there for a long time too, where it's like you're kind of trying to find the thing that sticks, right? And really the parish that sticks, right? You're almost looking just for the right parish. And then hopefully that parish will translate when you move to another, right? Like maybe this Presbyterian church is great, so it means I'll be Presbyterian next time. It's like, oh no, not that one.
Right.
Okay, well now maybe I'm a Methodist. Who knows?
Right.
But
Let's find out.
it is impressive that even though your parents were going through that, it was able to still feel like a really consistent religious experience for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I think as parents, like listening, like we have a lot of seekers who listen to ancient faith, right? And like as you're going through that experience of taking your kids to different churches, you kind of feel like, oh my gosh, what message am I sending? But really what you're sending is church is super important, and we're going to keep going, period. And every once in a while we'll think there's a better one and we'll go to that one. Like that's neat.
Right. Yeah. And
that's good. That's good.
Prayer
That
before mealtime.
Yeah, it's very good that it felt that way to you as you grew up. That's cool. So, all right. So you're thinking about art, you're playing sports, you're mostly just kind of having a great time as a kid. Where were you still in North Bend for high school?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And what's that school like? Is it a fairly small school? What were you like in high school?
Yeah, it was pretty small. It was kind of, thankfully it wasn't tiny. I think our graduating class was like, I want to say 200. So there's like around 600 kids in the school, which I think is a nice size because since I was there from like third grade on, I just felt like, by that time, well, all the elementary schools merged in junior high, and so you're kind of, all the same kids from seventh grade on through 12th grade. And so by the time, senior year hits, like you feel, even if you didn't really you weren't best friends with everyone, I felt like I was like, I knew everybody, and it felt like, really familiar and really, I don't know, it was just really nice. I felt like, hey, I know these people. And even if we don't know each other, like, super, super, super well, like, I remember when they, brought trolls to show and tell in the fourth grade, like, you sort of just, like, remember little bits and pieces, and you have the shared history and everything like that. And so I really appreciated, I really liked the school. And because it was smaller and because, again, my two sisters sort of helped pave the way, I felt pretty comfortable, and I felt like it was a pretty, I felt like it was a nice place to go to high school and stuff like that. So yeah, I liked it. It's pretty heavy on sports. A lot of, for being such a small school, I think that they were really, really like into sports and stuff. So there is that. And even if you didn't play sports, there was something to do. You're going to a basketball game, you're going to football games and stuff. So even if it was just for social reasons and stuff, like you sort of just went and there was always kind of something to do with your friends and everything like that. So.
That's funny. That's interesting because, living in Texas, I know, football is like a way of life around here, right? People joke that it's like our second religion out here. Not mine, because I'm not from here. I don't care. But but really, it's interesting to hear that in a small town in Oregon, sports were a big deal too. But on the other hand, it makes sense because it's a good, wholesome thing to do when you're far from the big city. There's not, what else are you going to do? You got to go to the game, of course. Of course.
And
that's
Steve
lovely.
Steve Prefontaine was from our rival school right across the city. So he was a famous runner, Olympic runner, and like we're 2 hours south of University of Oregon, which is a huge, known for its sports. And so I think there must have been some kind of trickle down effect. So I don't know. Yeah. I'm guessing that's why.
No, that makes sense. Absolutely. That totally makes sense. People, Eugene coming down. Is that the Ducks up there? The Oregon Ducks? Good. Yes. Yep. Oh, I had a friend who was a baseball player for the Ducks at one point. We were so proud. Cool. And then he was like, I hated it. I left. Like, well, all right. All right. There you go. But
sorry, Ducks.
You never know. Yeah, sorry, Ducks. It wasn't that much fun, he said. But
that's all right.
But okay, so you're going through high school. What are you thinking you're going to do with your life? Like, were you thinking, I'm going to be an artist? Were you thinking also, I want to know, because you're a Presvytera, were you feeling like I'm a very religious person? My life is going to have some kind of faith significance? Like, what was your sort of vision of who you are and who you're going to be as an adult?
Yeah. Well, I always wanted to be an artist, and I've always wanted to illustrate books, and I've always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. So that was kind of something like I want to do both of those things. I want to have kids, and I want to like work on books at home. And so that was kind of my dream and my goal. And as far as my faith goes, like I was really involved and pretty involved, like in our church youth group and stuff. When we moved to Oregon, we finally kind of settled. I think my mom was done with moving around to different churches. And she's like, no, if we're moving to Oregon, we're going to focus on one church. And so pretty shortly after we moved here, we started going to a Presbyterian church. And that, like, we were never catechized as, like, Presbyterians or anything like that. We never officially became, like Presbyterians or anything, or like, members of the church. But we were there. We were, pretty committed to being there. So, anyways, we got involved, and I would go to youth group and stuff. And so that was formative. That was really nice. But it's kind of funny because I remember one time, I think it was technically in junior high, but it was formative to my faith. My dad was actually teaching our Sunday school class, and he said, what do you guys think that heaven is going to be like? And a lot of the kids, their arms shot up in the air, and they said, oh, it's going to be like a big, big house with lots and lots of food. I think it's that Newsboys song. like it's a big house with lots of food, we're going to play football and stuff. And then he kind of just looks at them and he goes, no, we're going to be worshiping God for all of eternity. And all of our faces kind of drop. We're like, oh, that doesn't sound like fun. But that was like our reaction. But for me, I'm like, oh, something's not right if that's my reaction. And something is not right with my way of how I think worshiping God is going to be.
Oh,
So
what a great insight.
Here.
Yeah,
Like, so
what a great insight. If I don't like worship, then what am I like? where am I headed with this? Oh, how lovely.
If I don't want to be, I go upstairs for the adult service and, right after Sunday school. And that was my picture of what worship was up in the sanctuary during the sermon. It was like, well, that's not really what I think. I don't want that for eternity. So something's wrong here. So that was like formative for me. And I think it opened up my eyes to like, gee, how do I love God? Do I want to be with him for eternity? And if so, what does that look like? And so it was sort of a seed was planted, if nothing else. But I did take my faith seriously. But it's funny that you mentioned, like faith in high school and stuff, because right before I started high school, actually, my dad, who here he is, he's a speaker and everything like that, he sort of sits us down as a family and he says, hey, we're going to have a family meeting and I want to share with you that I'm pursuing the Orthodox faith. And we're just like, what are you even talking about? I've never even heard of this. Like, what is this, So we didn't know, I had no exposure to Orthodoxy whatsoever. There is not an Orthodox church in my hometown or even really close at all. The closest one ended up being 2 hours away up in Eugene. And so that was something that, and I think a few weeks later, as a family, we ended up going to our first service, which was pretty mind-blowing, very otherworldly, very different. But that was something that, thanks be to God, the priest at the church, I think my dad was really, really eager to become Orthodox. And thanks be to God, the priest said, just be patient, like wait for your family. And I think the priest, sometimes I've learned, since then, sometimes priests just give them a blessing and say, go ahead, we'll wait for your family later, but you go ahead. But I'm just so thankful that Father David here just had the insight, perhaps, that if I allowed my dad to do that, then that could have done more damage than not. So he was like, yes, just be patient. So, and because we were 2 hours away, there really wasn't much we could do anyway. We couldn't be involved with the church as much as my dad would have liked. So it was a slow process, but so nothing was really, we were visiting church. So basically all, first 2 years of high school, we'd go to the Presbyterian church one weekend or one Sunday, and then the next Sunday we would drive 2 hours up to Eugene to go to the Orthodox church, and we would alternate that for a while. And so I think after about 2 years of doing that, it became pretty clear to me, okay, this is where it's at. But But it was kind of like
what a hard thing. I think about that. What, your dad's position, right? Just sort of falling in love and knowing okay, Orthodoxy is the thing, right? And then it's your whole family doesn't snap too just because you did. And then what do you do? And it is true. You can cause some damage by him just peeling off and doing his own thing. And that's not what he really wants. He wants everybody else to get excited about it too. But that's interesting. So as a teenager, I would have been, if I were your dad in his shoes, and I've been in similar enough shoes. I have a whole lot of teenagers, but I would have been really worried that you would have preferred the Presbyterian church because probably it was less standing up and reciting things, right? And it was your friends from town. Those are the kids you go to high school with in the youth group, but we drive to Eugene and who knows who those kids are. And there probably aren't as many kids, and et cetera, et cetera. So how did that work out for you? All of those questions of the social life about it, the difference of the worship, the strangeness of it all. How was that? How did that evolve for you over those years?
Yeah. So the funny thing is a lot of my close friends that I had since third and fourth grade, several of them were Catholic. And so, and one of them was, I guess, were agnostic or atheist. So they weren't really once in a while someone would come to church with me for youth group and stuff, and that was always nice. But I had friends in youth group, but it was more my mom made me come. But like, I didn't put up too much of a fight, but I went. And like, I think all the kids were kind of in a similar situation. We're kind of just like, hey, like, so we liked it, but so we had this funny little bond, but I wasn't like one of those people like, I can't wait to get to youth group and play Nerf ball. Or, I was just like, it was like, so that wasn't like too devastating for me to sort of deal with that. But there was definitely camaraderie there and stuff. But like when I went to, the Orthodox Church for the very first time, that question of worship really, made an impact on me right away. I was like, okay, I'm going to come pursue this. And over the years, he'd talk about it a little bit with our priest and stuff. And then, sort of just like, like talk himself out of it, so to speak. And it's a huge thing to even wrap your brain around. Like, how, at this point, we've got 4 children. How could this possibly even happen? And he's happy with his job. He likes his job. And so it's like, it's pretty scary to think of, am I really going to quit my job just to do this? And so it was just, God opened doors. You have this little thought in your head that won't go away, and you're just trying to discern prayerfully, and you're communicating with your priest about it, and certainly nothing without his blessing and stuff. So it was just such a process and such a unique calling, because he's here we are in the Greek Archdiocese, and he wants to be a working priest, which isn't as common. In the Greek Archdiocese, it's more full-time priests and stuff. So for my husband, he's just like, well, I like my job and I'd like to help out a mission as a priest, but that's kind of unheard of. We didn't really have a lot of models to look at for what that could look like and stuff. So we just kind of went on faith, and his job allowed him to continue working. When we moved out to Boston in 2015 and started seminary, and we just sort of took it one year at a time just to see what would happen. And glory to God, everything worked out with the blessing of our bishop, and we're at a mission now. So it just took a lot of time, to discernment and following, kind of that still small voice in your heart that's saying, no, just keep trying, So, I mean, sorry if I bumbled that, but that's sort of how it was. Such a slow process, I guess, to answer your question. It was such a slow process, seminary, but he knew deep down, he's like, well, I want to serve God no matter what I do, whether as a layman or as a priest. And so he got really involved with parish council. And I think that gave him some pragmatic experience with like administrative experience and how does the church operate? How does it work?
Yeah. Behind the scenes knowledge. That's good.
Yeah. So
that's really helpful.
Valuable. Yeah, it really is. Yeah. They don't teach that.
Yeah, you could underestimate that. Yeah, exactly. They don't teach that at Holy Cross. No, but seeing how it works and how much people's emotions and their pride and all these different things get involved in things. Oh, that's great. That's neat.
Yeah, it was a good experience. It was.
Yeah, and I didn't. It is really important, I think. There are so many full-time priests in the Greek Archdiocese, and then other archdioceses have mostly priests who are not full-time, right?
Yeah.
But so it all varies, but there's really a place for all of those things, right? Like a full-time priest is a wonderful thing in a big parish, but in a little mission parish that can't pay to feed you or get you some health care, it's really great to find out that there's someone who's a priest only on weekends, thank God.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
that's neat. That's neat.
Thankful that we can, we're just so thankful that, he was able to learn under Father Jerry Markopoulos, who's the priest at St. George's in Eugene. And Father Jerry has been so supportive and an outside the box thinker because we do need a full-time priest, and we also need some outside the box thinkers, who can creatively approach with again, prayer and discerning and always with the blessing of your priest and bishop and stuff, but you're right. It takes all kinds and stuff. So to meet the unique needs of a parish and everything,
especially a mission, it's so complicated. And so, tell me about your artwork. What are you doing with your art knowledge now? We have just a few minutes left, but I want to make sure we talk about it. What are you doing?
I'm doing some books. I'm trying to get some book illustration. I've illustrated 2 books for the Department of Religious Education, and that's been absolutely wonderful. And I do art on. I post it on Instagram. I know that's kind of silly, but I really like to do comics. I like to do portraits. I do some Christmas commissions. I sell some cards on Etsy of hand drawn art. I would love to do more illustration work now that the kids are getting older and stuff, just trying to really figure out who I am as an artist and where God can use me and stuff. But it's been wonderful to really devote more time to that in the past couple of years.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And so for our listeners, if you want to find Kathryn, Presvytera Kathryn, anywhere on Instagram, she's Kathryn, Kathryn. Kathryn Tussing with 2 S's is her name on Instagram. Where are you on Etsy? How do we find your Etsy store?
The same. So Kathryn Tussing Art is my shop name, and I sell a few icon prints. I sort of have done some illustration icons. So they're not like icons, but like more with like different media. So I just call them icon kind of illustrative renderings. But I sell some copies of that in my Etsy shop, and also some